are listening to the Healing Migraines Naturally podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leslie Caesar, and I'm helping women rediscover a migraine-free life. Today, I'm talking to Mary, who runs our awesome Facebook community, about the things the supplement industry doesn't want you to know. So, really excited about our conversation today. How are you doing, Mary?
Doing great. I think this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm really going to get on my soapbox today on this topic.
Awesome. I'm excited.
And how have you been this week?
Really good. It's been a busy, fun week, and I'm excited to get ready for Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, so woohoo!
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of decorating at your house? Are you like the house with the best decorations? Or
Probably not, but inside I'm trying. I have a lot of, ideas, but kind of slowly gathering pieces as I go.
Gotcha. Well, I actually got our Halloween decorations out last Sunday, which I was so proud of myself. I got it all out in a day and, not the week before.
Right. I'm like, it's amazing how much coordination and work that requires.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, this is episode 3 of our podcast, and we finished episode 2 talking about magnesium supplementation and how it generates, as you said, Mary, regularity, right? Keeps you regular.
Yes.
And by that we mean horrible loose stools.
Right. I'm like extra regular.
Regular, right, exactly. Yeah. So we ended on that with our second episode, and so I thought, you know what, let's do episode 3. Let's talk about magnesium. Let's talk about the supplement industry, okay? And most people would assume, I'm sure, that I'm going to be critical of the pharmaceutical industry, the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry, and certainly I am critical. I have my critique of that industry, but I am as critical of the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry as well. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that. So I thought we could talk about that as we talk about magnesium and all the other supplements.
Right. When I go into a natural food store and I look at the supplements, it's like the plethora of options is so overwhelming to me. And I literally look at every bottle and I'm like, how in the world would I ever know if this actually will work? Mm-hmm. Because every bottle says best supplement ever. Like there's no, and it's not regulated really, right?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated because people will say, well, they're not regulated. Well, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is the main governmental body that approves things for use to treat diseases. And so the FDA approves the drugs or other medications that are used to treat disease. And so the quote unquote supplement industry, the supplements that you are looking at in your health food store, they are not FDA approved to treat diseases. It's not like anything goes, right? I mean, you still can't put, arsenic in stuff, right? That's going to be illegal. Okay. Right. So when people say, well, the supplement industry is unregulated, I think that it's not like the total wild, wild west in the supplement industry. There are still regulations and things that have to be followed. You can't poison people.
But you can't make certain claims, which is interesting. When you do look at all these bottles, there are sort of claims on the bottles, but the wording is very tricky. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess my whole point is that it's very overwhelming and it's very difficult to weed out garbage from not garbage. And in our group, for example, there's so much conversation around what supplement do you take that helps? And, Jane might say magnesium and the next lady will say, well, that gave me diarrhea. So it's really hard to make sense of any of it.
And with drugs, there is, if there's 5 milligrams of propranolol in the tablet, if that's what it says on the label, there has to be that amount on the label. And then also drugs, say if you take a drug like propranolol, which is a common migraine preventative prescription, there are, it's not like, oh, well, this pharmacy has 5 milligram tablets and this pharmacy has 6 milligram tablets. And I went here and that was 4.5 milligram tablets. There are standardized dosing within pharmaceuticals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, propranolol is a generic medication. And so you're going to have a lot of manufacturers making it, but you don't have just sort of chaos as far as, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. It's a standardized preparation of the drugs and how they're dosed and things like that. In the supplement world, right, you could have a brand, a product that has 300 milligrams of magnesium. You could have another brand that has 100 milligrams of magnesium, right? It doesn't have the same level of standardization that you see with the drugs, right? So let's talk about some of the issues here, okay, with the supplement industry. Again, I like to emphasize multi-billion-dollar supplement industry, right? So, the pharmaceutical industry is the biggest source of campaign contributions in the United States. The pharmaceutical lobby is the biggest lobby. It's bigger than the oil and gas lobby. A lot of people don't realize that. So, the pharmaceutical industry is very, very powerful in the United States. The supplement industry is not that big, but it is a multi-billion-dollar industry with their own lobbyists and things like that. So like I say, it doesn't come close to the power of the pharmaceutical industry, but don't negate the power that's behind those billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
Okay. And so the main thing with supplements, okay, anything that we put into our mouth has to be broken down by our digestive tract. That's our food and the supplements that we take. So, unfortunately, most women with migraines, their digestive function is poor. Okay, and this goes back to the first principle of restoring our health. Okay, so I have several free webinars, free trainings on this topic. We can link to those in the show notes. But there are 3 things that we have to do to restore our health. And the first thing is we have to get the nutrients to every cell in the body. So how do we get nutrients to every cell in the body? Well, first we have to put them in our mouth in the form of our food. Okay. We can put them in our mouth in the form of supplements, but I'm going to talk about why that's not ideal. Okay. But first we have to put the nutrients into the digestive tract. And the nutrients, the digestive tract has to break the food down, break apart the supplement, and extract the nutrients out of it, the food or the supplement. Okay. So this is the number one blocker within this first principle. This is a common blocker to people's health, is their digestive function. People have been told that it's normal to have heartburn. People have been told that it's normal to have bloating, gas, loose stools, right? People are taking magnesium on purpose to have loose stools. People don't realize that we should have 1 to 2 bowel movements a day, formed bowel movements, not loose bowel movements, but formed bowel movements per day. People think, oh, I don't go to, I hear people tell me, oh, I don't have any digestive issues. I go to the bathroom every 2 to 3 days. Is that a problem? So we should be able to swallow our food. A lot of people have difficulty swallowing their food. So we should not have anything going on with our digestive tract. Okay. If you can feel your digestive tract, if you have discomfort in your digestive tract, your digestion is not functioning properly. And the food that you're eating is not going to get broken down properly. You're not going to extract the nutrients out of the food that you're eating. And for goodness sakes, if you're taking supplements, you're not going to get the nutrients out of the supplements because our digestive tract is designed to get nutrients out of the food that we're eating. It's not designed to get nutrients out of pills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have anything going on with your digestive tract, you have a blocker within this first principle. We cannot get the nutrients to the cells if we can't even get them out of the food.
Interesting. So, like, you could potentially be spending thousands of dollars on a supplement that's just going right out the exit, basically.
Exactly. 100%. 100%.
I remember hearing a long time ago that certain vitamins, if they like tested feces afterwards, would like come out the other end in big pieces. I'm like, what? What are we spending
Yes.
our money on?
Yeah. So your 1-a-day type
Mm.
vitamins you're getting me a little bit hot here, Mary.
I'm sorry.
Okay, deep breathing here. So there are over 4,000 nutrients that they have identified in the food that we eat.
Mm.
You cannot put that in a capsule.
Mm.
Number one. Okay. So what they do put in the capsules are sort of like the real high level nutrients. Okay. The vitamin C, the magnesium, the calcium, the vitamin A, right? Those high level nutrients. We're not getting anywhere near 4,000 plus nutrients in a capsule or a tablet. Not possible, right? We have to eat food to get those nutrients. So what they do is, even to get the high level nutrients in a tablet or a capsule, you're going to have to take multiple capsules and tablets a day just to get the high level nutrients.
Hmm.
So with sort of like the higher quality vitamin and mineral supplements, if you're going to do like a quote unquote multivitamin supplement on the higher quality products,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be taking 6 to 8 capsules or tablets a day just for the high level nutrients, right? I don't know about you, but I don't like taking that many pills. Okay.
Well, and just to buy that many, like, what is that? 3-4 bottles a month?
Right? Exactly. Exactly. So when you then think about a 1-a-day
Mm.
vitamin, right? So, like, I'm a Costco member. I love Costco, but they have a huge supplement section at Costco with like all these 1-a-day type stuff. So, to compress 6 to 8 tablets into one tablet to make a 1-a-day product, you have to compress that tablet with so much force and compress it down so much that even if your digestive tract were in top-notch quality,
Uh-huh.
you're probably not going to be able to dissolve that tablet. It's
Wow.
too dense. Okay. So yes, I have also heard from like septic tank companies.
Yeah.
They'll go in and clean out a septic tank or like a roto-rooter type situation, and they find whole intact 1-a-day tablets in the tank.
Oh my gosh. I
Right?
would actually love, I mean, not to see it, but like, I would love to
Right?
see the evidence, because I'm like, that's so hard to believe, Like, I
Right.
want to put my
Right.
eyes on it so I can really grasp it. It's crazy.
Right?
Not that I really want to see it, but
I know, right? So so just let that process for a second there. Right?
right.
The other aspect too is when we are eating food, the nutrients in the food are in an ionic form. Okay. Like the magnesium in spinach is kind of in the cells of the spinach, right? Just like in our own body, the magnesium is in our own cells, right? So when we crunch on a little spinach leaf, we're breaking open those cells of the spinach and releasing the nutrients that are inside of those cells. Right? So that is the form of the nutrients that our digestive tract is designed to process.
Right.
When you just can't put magnesium in a capsule, it's an ion, right? So if you go back to high school chemistry class, ions react with other things, right? They can be dissolved in something like water, but you just can't put magnesium ions on the table.
Right.
So to put them in supplements, they have to bind all of the minerals, the vitamins, all these little nutrients. They have to bind them to carrier molecules. So then the digestive tract not only has to get through the capsule or the tablet, then it has to dislodge the mineral or the vitamin or the nutrient from the carrier molecule. Our digestive tract is not designed to do this.
Huh.
So that's
It
another
sounds
barrier.
like just way too much work for our bodies.
Right? Way too much work for a digestive tract that for most women with migraines is not functioning properly anyway.
Right.
Right? So, people are, like you say, these things are not cheap.
No.
Right? Even at Costco, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
And, I'll be honest with you, the things that are sold in Costco are on the lower end, right? Because the other thing, the FDA with the drug manufacturers, if it's a 5 milligram propranolol pill, that's what's in there, right? Versus, hey, if Costco wants to put 100 milligrams of something, they can do that. Another company can put 400 milligrams in something.
Right.
It's both called magnesium, right? You have to actually read the label to know how much is in there.
Huh.
So the cheaper supplements, they're going to compress more into less capsules or tablets.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to lower the amount. They're going to use cheaper binders, right? So you can bind the magnesium ion to a lot of different carrier molecules, right? And so the cheaper companies are going to use cheaper versions of those carrier molecules. Well, guess what? The cheaper it is, the harder it is for our digestive tract to break it apart. Right. So all of that is unregulated, right? When you go into a store and you're just looking at the magnesium bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't, they can call it magnesium, but it's not, right? It's not known to you, right? As you're perusing the shelves. Well, oh, this has 100 milligrams versus 500 milligrams. You'd really have to read the label. What is this bound to? Right? The average person doesn't have that depth of knowledge, right? They just see
Right.
magnesium,
Well, and on
right?
top of that, I mean, I don't know I do know about you, but me and probably a chunk of our audience is not equipped to decipher like which type of magnesium is best for my body and like which one will make me even sicker. And like, we don't have that background of like, the teeny tiny details, like to diagnose or treat properly. I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a hard time wording that right, but you know what I'm
No,
saying.
no, I'm following you.
Yeah.
The best form of magnesium for the human body is the magnesium that's floating around in the little spinach cells.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best form,
Right. Right. So
right?
walking into Costco or any other health food store, like I, was saying earlier, like it's just like staring at a huge wall of magnesium and like it's like throwing a rock at it and going, here, I'll try this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, I think it is very interesting to me, right? Because we've talked about this in depth on the second podcast, that we have been told over and over again that we don't feel well because we're defective.
Right.
And so we have to take a pill to feel better. There has to be something outside of us to make us feel better because we're defective.
Mm-hmm.
And that outside, that thing from the outside is the medication, right?
Right.
We have to take this medication because we're defective. Well, what is it like going into the health food store and looking at all the natural pills?
Right.
Right? We're not thinking about the magnesium in the food we're eating. We're thinking again, I'm defective. I need an outside pill to make me feel better.
Right. Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, in my view, the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry reinforces this false belief that we have been told that we need something external from ourselves to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And most natural practitioners are operating this way. Most natural practitioners, we talked a lot on the second podcast around what your medical doctor is thinking when you go into the appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, what is your natural medicine practitioner thinking when you go into the appointment? Unfortunately, the vast majority of natural practitioners, they still think you're defective and need something natural to fix you.
Right.
Right? So I think the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry is reinforcing this false belief that we have culturally, that we've all been indoctrinated with, that we've all grown up with.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're listening to this and saying, well, I can't eat spinach, the problem is not the spinach, right? We should be able to eat spinach and we should be able to get the nutrients out of the spinach that we eat. If you're having symptoms after you eat spinach, it's because your digestion is not functioning properly and you're not able to break the spinach down properly.
Oh, and I think, we will probably have a whole other podcast about digestive issues and food, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I can't wait to do the podcast.
I'm like, there's so much, we can get a huge soapbox on that, but there's so much conversation around food triggers and things like that. So like that opens a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah. I think the next podcast we should devote to food triggers because this is another real big soapbox issue of mine, right?
Yep.
But you can start to see, right, how the supplement industry is actually operating in the same mindset that the pharmaceutical industry is, right?
But it's sad because at the same time, like, we slap the word natural on it and assume that it's always going to be better for us.
And there are some natural things that are going to be better, right? I think what we have come to a realization culturally that really wasn't there like when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. We really hadn't come to this point yet, but we have come to the point now where we are looking at the environment and we are saying, yeah, geez, our human ingenuity and our human progress has introduced some pretty, toxic stuff into the food supply and the water supply and the air supply, right? And that's a good thing, right? I mean, the environment is actually much cleaner than it was when I was a kid in the 70s. And so we have that realization. And so people want organic. They want quote unquote natural, right? And that absolutely is preferred to something that's artificial and toxic. Absolutely. Right. But, the multi-billion-dollar supplement industry has kind of exploited that.
Yeah.
Right. The multi-billion-dollar processed food industry has also exploited this. We should just call this show Dr. Leslie's Soapbox Issues. So,
everything explaining people unveiled. We'll just sit here and make lists.
Right.
No, just kidding.
So I'm, 10 minutes from a Whole Foods. I go there a couple times a week. The whole store is full of organic processed food. Right? We feel better if we buy processed food that says organic, right? Because everybody knows you're not supposed to eat processed food. So, well, if it's organic.
I'm sitting here thinking that is literally the biggest oxymoron ever.
But, right? It's organic, right? So it's okay, right? The chips are organic.
It's so funny.
Right? So this is, like I say, how we are being, we're being a little bit manipulated, right? Because we have come to this understanding that we shouldn't be, polluting and poisoning our environment that we're living in, right? And like I say, definitely it's better to eat food that doesn't have pesticides and herbicides and things like that in it. Everybody knows that, right?
Right.
But it is being exploited a little bit where people are kind of led to feel that they're doing something positive when it's really just a processed food that happens to be organic, right?
Right.
So we talked about, let's kind of recap here. So we talked about FDA regulation over the supplement industry. I think we covered one of my big points that I have to make about supplements, because you're right, Mary, in our Facebook group, Healing Migraines Naturally with Leslie Caesar ND, people are drawn to the Facebook group, right? Because they want natural solutions. And that's that's absolutely what they should be looking for. But in people's minds, a natural solution means a supplement instead of a drug. That's what a natural solution means in most people's minds.
Well, and
right?
I just want to reiterate too that I think there's a lot of trust issues involved in this entire thing, because people don't know who to trust or what to trust anymore. And so we go, well, I trust my doctor, and my doctor goes and gives me a prescription. Or someone else will say, well, I trust natural things. So they go to the health food store in the supplement aisle. Somebody else might say, well, I trust organic processed food. And there's so much information that contradicts each other. It's so hard to weed out as an average person.
The problem is that people don't know the fundamental things that are required to restore and maintain their health. And these are what I call the three principles. And so, again, those three principles are first principle, getting the nutrients to every cell in the body. Second principle, clearing metabolic waste material and toxins. And third principle, restoring our resiliency and vitality. Right? When we do those three things, the innate ability of the body to heal itself and repair itself becomes activated, and we start to feel better. As we continue to act within those three principles, we feel better and better. Now, you can work on all three of those principles without taking any supplements. You don't need anything external to you to work within these three principles.
That's so fascinating to me. And I'm guessing you're going to teach us more about that in the future.
But see, it's a shock to hear that, because we have been told over and over again that we are defective and we need something outside of ourselves, external to ourselves, to make us feel better.
Or like you've said multiple times, that basically there's nothing we can do to fix it. So let's just throw a Band-Aid solution so you feel a little better at it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And, within the Facebook group, even people, when they're talking about natural supplements for migraines, which are typically B2 or riboflavin, magnesium, and CoQ10, those are going to be the top three that even neurologists will recommend.
Right. Funny, because like I told you, I made a list and there's over 25 that I see regularly in the group. And those are exactly the ones I circled as the most common.
Yeah, those are the most common. Yeah. So when people are talking about those, again, it's sort of like we make CoQ10. Our bodies make CoQ10 from the other nutrients that are in our food. So why do I need a supplement of CoQ10? Why don't I build up my body where I have the nutrients that I need to make CoQ10? The cells that make CoQ10 aren't swimming in metabolic waste material and toxins. And I have enough vitality to make the CoQ10. Why don't I just make my own CoQ10?
Right.
Right? Rather than taking it in a supplement, because I'll tell you, CoQ10 is one of the supplements where when you just put CoQ10 into a supplement tablet, we absorb a tiny fraction of that CoQ10. So if you're taking CoQ10 a CoQ10 version, a CoQ10 format that your digestive tract actually can absorb, you're going to be spending $60 to $100 a month on that CoQ10.
Oh, wow.
The cheaper CoQ10s, your digestive tract can only absorb a tiny, tiny fraction of that, because CoQ10 is a really big molecule and our digestive tract isn't expecting it. It's not designed to absorb this huge CoQ10 molecule.
Interesting.
You can put these nutrients into capsules. It does not mean that you're going to absorb them. And why take something that we can make, right? If your body isn't making enough CoQ10, let's get it making the CoQ10.
I mean, that sounds like a good idea.
Right?
Right.
But we don't think that, right?
Right.
We think, well, I have migraines. I need extra CoQ10 from a supplement.
So let me ask you this. Like, I know we have a podcast training on why supplements stop working or medicine stops working. But let me ask you the flip side of that. Why do these supplements work sometimes? Like, a lot of people say in the Facebook group, I take magnesium and it's usually a certain type and it really helps me. Or we get a lot of CBD, we get a lot of THC. I mean, just whatever. There's just so many different things. And people say, one of them was like, oh, I drink tart cherry juice and that helps me. Why is it that some of them work some of the time, but not all of the time?
So this is going to depend like tart cherry juice. Okay. So tart cherry juice is full of nutrients. So in a broad spectrum of nutrients. So if somebody is very nutrient deficient and you take tart cherry juice, you're going to get like a little booster of all of the nutrients that are in that tart cherry juice.
Okay. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could eat cherries too.
I think I would prefer that, to be honest. The tart
cherries, you know?
Like the tart cherry juice does not sound appealing.
Right? I mean, it's like the juice of a food.
Right.
Right? So, when we eat food, we get nutrients into the digestive tract. Right? So if somebody has adequate digestive function and they're low in the nutrients that are in tart cherries and they eat tart cherries, then they're going to benefit from the nutrients in those tart cherries, and their digestive tract is going to be able to get those nutrients out of the cherries.
Right.
Right. But what if I don't have a deficiency in the nutrients from tart cherries? Then when I have tart cherries, it doesn't make a difference.
Right.
I'm not deficient in those nutrients. Or if my digestive function, if I have heartburn and I drink tart cherry juice, the fact that I have heartburn tells me that my digestive function is poor.
Right.
And so I can drink all the tart cherry juice in the world. If I can't get the nutrients out of the tart cherries, it's not going to do me any good. Right? So the variability, right? Everybody says, oh, well, with migraines, one thing helps one person and one thing helps another person. And migraines, you never know what's going to work. It's not the migraines, right? In this case, it's your digestive function. That's what's causing the difference in the response, or your own nutrient status. It has nothing to do with migraines being a condition that is elusive and, variable and all these other types of things, right? It goes back down, in this example, to that first principle of getting the nutrients into every cell in the body. It starts with what we eat and what our digestive function is.
Seriously. So, I mean, and we talked a little bit about spaghetti on the wall medicine, and it goes back to that where if you don't know your digestive system isn't functioning properly and you don't know what nutrients you're deficient in or nutrients you're deficient in, you are just throwing spaghetti at the wall and being like, maybe magnesium, maybe cherry juice, maybe CoQ10, maybe electrolytes. How about some pickle juice? Like, that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of suffering. I'm not partial to drinking pickle juice either. So like, I mean, you just see people going through these hoops of like, what will work for me? And I feel so bad for them because they're so desperate for relief that they will drink anything.
Right.
It's
Right.
heartbreaking to even think about it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's a lot of work to go through all this, I think.
Oh my goodness. No, right? Last time we talked about spaghetti on the wall, drug prescribing, and you're absolutely right. Spaghetti on the wall, natural product supplementation,
Wow, yeah.
right? And so when I work with my clients, when we do their initial intake, it becomes very obvious to me what their digestive function is. I do some nutrient testing. People's symptoms also tell me where nutrient deficiencies are,
Okay.
right? So it's not just like, I'm not just throwing, well, you try tart cherry juice and you try pickle juice and you try apple
You call
cider
me
vinegar,
back.
right? I'm doing an intake and some testing to determine what are we dealing with here.
Okay, so this, I was like trying not to burst in, but like this got me going, ooh, I have a really good question.
Yeah.
When you talk about symptoms and that giving you a clue that X, Y, or Z is off in a body, we've talked about migraines as a signal or an alarm system for your body saying, hey, something is off here. We need to help it. We need to help our body fix this. What are some of the other signals or symptoms that would tell Dr. Leslie that this body is out of alignment? Like what other things do people have happening that are like those red flags that the body is out of health?
Great question.
I know you just said heartburn or indigestion, so that's a good one to know.
So what happens first is we develop blockers in these three principles.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens first, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the time we get migraines, we already have developed blockers or missing pieces within those three principles. And I talked about this on the first podcast when we were talking about our migraine stories. I started getting migraines when I was 24, but my health was declining by the time I was a teenager. And now I can see that I had symptoms within each of these three principles. That's how it starts. And for most of us, I mean, I hate to tell you, but a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to see these symptoms in their kids.
Oh, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to know.
Right? So let's go through this. And we could even dedicate, gosh, you know what? I feel like as soon as we get into this, we like hit the
I know.
hit the good stuff, and then we're running out of time.
Like Pandora's box that I just opened.
Exactly. We're peeling the onion layers here. So there are telltale signs and symptoms within each of these three principles. That's what deteriorates first. Okay. So we've been talking a lot about the first principle in this podcast because we've been talking about supplements. So and for time here, I'm just going to focus on the first principle. Okay. So the first principle, again, I'm going to emphasize this, getting the nutrients to every cell in the body. That doesn't mean eating a nutrient-rich diet, I'm done with the first principle. The first principle is I'm actually getting the nutrients to the 30 to 40 trillion cells of my body. Okay? So first, we've got to eat the nutrients, right? This could be a blocker for people. They're not eating enough nutrients.
Okay.
And, you know, my mom has been listening to the podcast. Shout out to my mom. When I talk about my childhood, she feels a little guilty.
Oh, it's okay, Mom. I have a philosophy of we all mess our children up. It's a matter of how much and in what way. No.
Exactly, right? So this is
okay.
There's no indictment of my mom, right? Again, I was a kid in the 70s.
Right.
But, you know, a lot of people, children, are not eating enough nutrients.
Sure.
Boom, right? That's going to be a missing piece in that first principle. Okay. Now, once we eat the food, like I said before, the digestive tract has to be able to digest the food and extract the nutrients out of the food. So, one of the first things that people will experience, stomach pain, cramping. How many kids have stomach cramps?
Right.
I had stomach cramps when I was a kid.
Right.
Loose stools or constipation, not having bowel movements.
Okay.
Right? People don't, your pediatrician will tell you that your child is not constipated if they're having one bowel movement a week.
Ooh.
We need to have 1 to 2 bowel movements a day.
Yeah.
Right? So when I was a, teenager, when I was a young woman, I wasn't thinking about my bowel movements. Right?
I was trying not to think about it.
Right?
Because you don't want me to think about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many bowel movements a day I was having before I started getting migraines, right?
Oh my gosh.
Heartburn. You shouldn't be having heartburn.
Mm-hmm.
Eating spicy food should not give you heartburn, right? Our stomach acid is pH 0. That takes paint off of a car. Tomatoes are nowhere near that, right? So we should be able to eat food, spicy food, acidic foods, and not have heartburn. We should be able to swallow our food. Right? You can see all of these symptoms within the digestive tract. Those are blockers to getting the nutrients out of the food. So those are the things that people will start to experience first. Low appetite. This is a big one. Not that hungry. Don't feel like eating. Don't feel like eating protein. We should have a hearty and robust appetite. If our appetite is low, that's a protective mechanism. If our digestive tract cannot break the food down and handle the food that we're eating, our body will lower our appetite for us to protect us. So you can see, I haven't even covered all of the possible symptoms.
I feel like this is a whole other episode too.
Right? I mean, throw a stone, you're going to hit an American with these symptoms.
Right. I mean, you've literally covered some of mine in, 3 minutes?
Right.
And I'm going, check, check, check.
Check, 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 check.
I'm not going to tell you which ones. No. No, I have really, really bad indigestion. And I was actually in the gastroenterologist and had a scope last week for that very thing. So I'm over here going, dang it, I should have just talked to Leslie.
So yeah, you're going into the health food store and you're looking at all those supplements and you can't even get the stuff out of your food, let alone these tablets. Right? So that's, our digestion, that's going to be a big blocker in this first principle. We've got to get that functioning properly.
I just am curious, okay, what about, I know, yes, migraines and digestive issues, but what about full body pain? A lot of people deal with fibromyalgia in our groups or, joint aches. There's one lady that was describing her face hurting. There's so many things that average people aren't dealing with, or at least they're not sharing, I guess.
My answer is more complicated, but I'm going to just stay within this first principle to answer your question. Okay. But the second and the third principle also play a role in this. But just think how your muscles would feel if they didn't have the nutrients that they need.
Good.
They're not going to feel good.
Good point.
So once we get the nutrients out of the food through our digestive tract, then we have to circulate the nutrients to 30 to 40 trillion cells. Right? And nutrients are transported. Most nutrients, they're not just floating around in the blood kind of haphazardly going places. Nutrients are transported by carrier molecules. They're directed by hormones. Organ systems play a role in the nutrient levels in our blood. It's very, very complicated. The blood is an unbelievably complicated organ. It's not just this red stuff and stuff floats around in there. That's what I thought before I went to naturopathic medical school. That's not the case. The blood is an unbelievably complex organ. We do not yet understand the complexity of the blood. And so just getting the nutrients to the cells, right? Is your jaw going to hurt if your jaw doesn't have the nutrients that it needs? to function properly?
Yeah.
Are your muscles going to be fatigued if they don't have the nutrients that they need to contract?
Right. You know, I just started reading a book about sleep, which is weird because it's not related, but it is. And the guy just starts out talking about how much our bodies rely on healing itself from nutrients and sleep. And he talked about healing degenerative discs. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That is one of those medical conditions that you just go, oh, well, I have degenerative discs. I guess I'm stuck.
Another false thing we have been told.
Mm-hmm.
The human body can recover from any disease. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Well, Mary, we're going to have to end it. I think we're going to have to go longer.
It's okay. We'll get it next time.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great conversation today. I think, why don't next time, episode 4, should we tackle food triggers?
I think we should.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we should. So,
all right, guys, tune in next time. Next week, we're going to tackle food triggers. Very good. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Before you go, be sure to like this episode and subscribe to this podcast. Do you have somebody in your life who would benefit from what we talked about today? If so, please share this on your social media. Please get this valuable information to them. I'm sure there's somebody in your life that's been praying for this information that we talked about today. Please share it with them. And if you want to stay connected, please join my free Facebook group, Healing Migraines Naturally, with Leslie Caesar, ND. We have over 11,000 women in there who are rediscovering a migraine-free life. Go to Healing Migraines Naturally in the Facebook search box, or you can go to healingmigrainesnaturally.com and we'll redirect you. Wonderful, Mary.
Awesome.
I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.